Krishnaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Sunyavari Paschatya Desha Tarine. How many of you is it your first time here in Vrinda Kund?
Кто из присутствующих?
How many of you are under 20 years old?
Кому меньше 20 лет от роду? Поднимите руки, пожалуйста. Физический возраст по паспорту имеется в виду.
So before beginning on the dipping into the ocean of the glories of Srimati Vrinda Devi, I'll tell a little story. 22 years ago, my little daughter who was born here, she fell in love with Indradumna Maharaj. And the only thing in her mind was how to attain the mercy of her spiritual master at 8 years old. At that time, ISKCON had acquired the Vrinda Kund project. And she would come here, we would come every Sunday, and the little children would all play together. But when she was 13 years old, she decided she couldn't stay in Vrindavan anymore. She had to go serve her Guru Maharaj in Poland. So she said goodbye to me. She said the only way she's really going to attain Vrindavan in the spiritual world is by serving her spiritual master. So she told me to book a ticket for her to Poland. Well, 13 years old, naturally I had to go with her. But we were in the process of developing this Vrinda Kund project at that time. So I was torn. I have to go with my daughter. I can't send her alone at that age. At the same time, we have to serve here at Vrinda Kund, establish this beautiful temple and deity. But when we got to Poland and took part in the festival, everything was forgotten. There was so much ecstasy on that festival that it was very hard to concentrate on my duties here in Vrindavan. Still, we had a responsibility, so I left my daughter in the care of Maharaj, and he arranged that I can go touring to collect donations for this temple. I'm telling you this because actually Indradumna Maharaj was very instrumental in establishing this temple. And my heart's desire was always to somehow transport the festival here to Vrinda Kund. So I'm hoping that in our last kirtan, our second kirtan, we could all have a real festival kirtan with singing and dancing and maybe possibly full parikrama of the Kund. You can just pretend that you're on the Baltic Sea coast. And then when you're on the Baltic Sea coast, you can remember dancing here at Vrinda Kund. So why is Vrinda Kund so important to the devotees? We'll have to go back to the beginning of creation. Radha Krishna are eternally one and eternally separated. And from Krishna come all the Vishnu tattvas, and from Radharani expand all of the Shakti tattvas. So there's a very special Shakti emanating from Srimati Radharani called Krishna Shakti. And that Shakti is the personality who arranges all of the meetings and the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. She's the principal Shakti who's arranging everything in Vrindavan Dham. Now that Shakti is personified as Srimati Vrinda Devi. And later we'll go through this word by word to understand what exactly Vrinda Devi does here in Vrindavan. For now, we'll try to understand what is the significance of Vrinda Kund. Just as Krishna lives in Nandagan and Radharani lives in Barsana, and possibly you've gone to the other gopis' villages like Uchagan. You've gone there? Has anyone gone to Uchagan, Lalita Devi's place? So each of the gopis were born in different places and have their places of pastime. So this is the place where Vrinda Devi resides eternally. And every day in Lord Krishna's pastimes, there are specific leelas that take place here. In the Ashtakaliya Leela, the day and night are broken into 8 divisions. The day starts with when Radha and Krishna wake up, and Vrinda Devi wakes them by calling birds to sing and monkeys to chatter. With great reluctance, Radharani puts on her clothes and goes back to her home. And Krishna puts on his clothes and comes back to Nandagan. Sometimes they mix their clothes up. So when they come home just before sunrise, Krishna crawls back into his bed so that it looks like he's been sleeping all night. And for 6 months out of the year, Radharani will return to Barsana, and for 6 months she returns to Javat. Because the wives are always sent home to their parents all throughout the year at different festival times. So after Radharani returns to her home, she then takes her bath and prepares to cook for Krishna. And she walks either from Barsana or from Jawat to Nandagan. This is very early in the morning, just after sunrise. And she prepares first by getting water to cook for Krishna at Pavan Sarovara here. And she has many, many assistants, some to cut the vegetables, some to boil the milk, some to tend to the fires. Now the reason why Radharani, although she's married to Abhimanyu, why does she come to cook for a young man in another village every day? Well, because everyone in Vrindavan loves Krishna more than their own life. And Radharani, she attained a benediction from Durvasa Muni that whoever eats what she cooks would always maintain perfect health. So the Brijbasis made a special request to Radharani's mother-in-law that she could come and cook for Krishna every day. Now, one would wonder, because Radharani is the most beautiful young girl in Vrindavan, Krishna is the most attractive young boy, why didn't they just get married? Well, everyone tried to get them married. And there are many pastimes here in Nandagram where Mother Yasoda gave Radharani so many wedding gifts, and then Radharani's parents returned other wedding gifts. Mother Yasoda did everything possible to get her son married to Radharani. So why didn't they get married? Because that would have destroyed the entire Parikya Ras of Vrindavan. So Yogamaya consulted astrological calculations and convinced the two families that it was not an auspicious time for this couple to marry. And she arranged Radharani to marry Abhimanyu in the village of Jawat. When Radharani married Abhimanyu, all of her gopis, manjaris, they wanted to be with Radharani, so they also married young boys in Jawat. Radharani had so many girlfriends around her, she never even saw the shadow of her husband. And Jawat is a little bit closer than Barsana to Nandagan. And there are more obstacles in meeting Radharani at Jawat. So Jawat is a very special place for Radha and Krishna Leela. Krishna would dress up in different disguises to meet Radharani in Jawat. And he would devise different leelas so that he could go to see her. So all of this orchestration, arrangement of the different ways for Radha and Krishna to meet are decided at this place every morning. After Radharani finishes cooking for Krishna, Krishna goes out, appears to go out, with his cowherd boyfriends to herd the cows. Now remember, when Radharani's cooking and Rohini Devi and Yashoda Mataji are serving Krishna breakfast, there's no way that Radha and Krishna can meet in Krishna's house. But that's all the two of them are thinking of, how to meet. So what Krishna does is, he goes out and says goodbye to his mother and father, and he tells Balaram to take all the boys, and he has something to do on the other side of town. And he comes here to this place to wait for Radharani. Meanwhile, Radharani has just finished cooking, and Mother Yasoda feeds her the remnants, and then she tells her to go home and get ready to cook for afternoon time. One of the maidservants in Mother Yasoda's house is named Dhanishta. So Dhanishta pretends to bring Radharani to her house, but through a secret path, she brings Radharani here. And who's here waiting for her? Krishna. Now we have two kunds here. The back is called Gupt Kund. Gupt means hidden, right. Have you seen Gupt Kund? Now Vrinda Devi, she's in charge of Vrinda Kund. And another duty or messenger is in charge of Gupt Kund. Her name is Veera Devi. Vrinda Devi is very soft-natured, and Veera Devi is rough and tough. Now, Veera Devi has created behind Gupta Kund a beautiful private garden for Radha and Krishna to meet. Come back in 20 years, you'll see that garden. We have the land, but it's not yet a garden. So while Krishna is waiting for Radharani to appear here, Purnamasi arrives, and Nandimukhi arrive, her granddaughter, and they meet here with Vrinda Devi. This is like the general manager and temple commander meeting in the morning at the temple. And they decide what's going to happen each day, where Radha and Krishna will go that day, which devotees have to prepare which services, which birds are going to sing there, which flowers are going to bloom there. Everything is decided at that time. And Krishna is listening, so he knows where to go. So Vrinda Devi, she's in charge of every single living entity's service in Vrindavan. And it's she who awards devotional service in Vrindavan. There's so many messengers working under her. And she also has a very special communication system. When you see Vrinda Devi, you'll see on her finger there's a parrot. This is a yellow parrot. That parrot's name is Daksh. And he has 300,000 discipled parrots. So he's also listening to where the pastimes are going to take place each day. And when everything's decided, he informs the parrots. And the parrots fly all over Vrindavan to inform the devotees what they have to do. If you see this beautiful tree here, some of the parrots are looking at us. Those are the main messengers of Daksh. So once everything is set up by Vrinda Devi and Purnamasi, what will happen each day, Radha and Krishna meet here secretly behind Gupta Kund. Now there's something called Yog Pit. Yog Pit is the connection place between Boma Vrindavan and Goloka Vrindavan. There are 3 Yog Pits in Brajamandal. The morning Yog Pit is here at Gupta Kund, because this is the first place that Radha and Krishna meet in the morning pastimes. So when we were all having the beautiful kirtan just now, that was just the time when Radha and Krishna were enjoying your kirtan. Now maybe you've seen pictures of Radha and Krishna standing in the center of a lotus with the gopis, and then the manjaris, and then the upamanjaris. Upamanjari. That's the assistant manjaris. So that happens here every morning at the Yog Pit. But this is a very secret place. Everyone's heard of Radha Kund. Everyone's heard of Govindaji temple in Vrindavan. But only the Vaishnavas who are fully absorbed in the Lord's pastimes know about Gupta Kund because it's hidden. So now you all know about Gupta Kund. And now you know where Radha and Krishna meet for the first time every day. So Vrinda Devi, being very soft-hearted, she's a messenger of Krishna, she always tries to encourage Radharani with sweet words to come and meet Krishna. And Veera Devi, she uses harsh words to Radharani. She tells Radharani, "You're so hard-hearted. Here's this boy, he's put his crown right at your feet, and you still won't talk to him." So even in the spiritual world, there are many different types of personalities. And all of these personalities increase the pleasure of Radha and Krishna's pastimes. Now, these pastimes in the Nandagaon area are considered the most important because Nandagaon is the center of Braj Mandal. Every morning the pastimes unfold from just this hill here. And that's why Vrinda Devi lives so close to Nandagaon. In Nandagaon, originally, there were 56 different kunds of Krishna's pastimes. If you read the Bhakti Ratnakara, you'll read about 56 kunds that Lord Chaitanya visited in this area. But just like when Lord Chaitanya went to Radha Kund and Sham Kund, the kunds weren't visible there. he then instructed the 6 Goswamis, Rupa, Sanatan Goswami, to excavate the kunds and excavate the holy places. And finally it was Raghunath Das Goswami who built something around Radha Kund. Now all of that happened, the disappearance of the holy places, because when Krishna left to go back to the spiritual world, he took all the Brijbasis with him. The only thing that was left behind were 3 things: Govardhan Hill, Jamuna River, and the dust of Vrindavan. Everyone else went back to Godhead with Krishna. So when Krishna ended up his pastimes in Braj, there were no more Brijbasis. Well, how do you live in a place where there are no people? So there was the guru of Nanda Maharaj. His name was Sandilya Rishi. And he was very concerned what was going to happen to this Boma Vrindavan after Krishna left. Now we know from the Bhagavad Purana that after the Pandavas left, Parikshit Maharaj was made the emperor of the world. And Sandilya Rishi, he appointed Krishna's great-great-grandson. There's Krishna, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Aniruddha's son's name is Vajranabha. So Vajranabha was appointed as the Maharaj of Vrajadam. And when he came here, he saw, I don't have any people as my subjects. So Sandilya Rishi instructed him that you bring people here and you immediately start establishing temples, wells, lakes, and ponds. And you bring all of the places where Krishna had his pastimes, you have to establish deities. Because Krishna had just left, so all the places were still visible. Now you'll notice that when you go all throughout Braj, you'll see broken deities. Just over here, you'll see one of those original deities that Vajranabha Maharaj established. He established all of the major deities that we worship today. Madan Mohan, Gopinath, Govindaji, everyone was established by Vajranabha Maharaj. So in each of the holy places, wherever Krishna had his pastimes, he put a deity. At this place of Vrinda Kund, he established a beautiful deity of Radha and Krishna. But this was 5,000 years ago. So gradually, things got covered up. Just like you'll see right now, there's no water in Vrinda Kund. Everything is completely dependent upon Krishna's mercy, the rain. When there's no rain, then the kunds dry up. So these 56 kunds that were surrounding Nandagan, one by one, they all started to disappear. And as Kali Yuga advanced, the Mlechas overran India. The capital of the Mughals was just 90 kilometers away from here. And though some of the Mughal kings were quite respectful to the worship of Krishna, there was one demoniac king named Aurangzeb who could not tolerate the worship of Krishna. So he sent his soldiers to destroy all of the deities in Braj. And the deities that could escape were taken to Rajasthan. That's why when you go to Jaipur, you're going tomorrow to Jaipur?
28.
When you go to Jaipur, you'll see many of these original deities that Vajranabha Maharaj established. They came, what they did was they took bullock carts full of hay. And this road that goes here in front of Vrinda Kund, that goes all the way into Rajasthan. So they hid the deities in the hay and took them into Rajasthan. And at each place they would stop for some time and establish a little bit of worship of the deity on the way. So when they reached the edge of Braj, that's at Kamyavan, and there they stopped. And when they were ready to go on, the deity of Vrinda Devi refused to move. She didn't want to leave Braj. So she was kept in Kamyavan, and all the other deities of Krishna were taken to Rajasthan. So that was a few hundred years ago. After that, the Mughal dynasty disintegrated, and then the British came in. So these deities that you'll see at Pavan Sarovara here, you'll see that the hands and the faces and the feet have all been broken off by the soldiers of Aurangzeb. And all of the deities, for instance, when you've heard of Srinathji, and of course you've heard of Madan Mohan and Gopinath, all of these deities that were rediscovered, they came in dreams to the devotees to tell them where they were. So there was one devotee who was actually a godbrother of Srila Prabhupada, and he was studying the ancient scriptures that describe all the holy places in Nandagaon. His name was Madhav Das Baba, and he lived here. He didn't live anywhere. We asked him once, where's your house? And he explained that the sky is my roof. So that's the way some saintly people still live in Braj. So what he wanted to do was he wanted to re-establish the most important kunds that had disappeared in the Nandagram area. So he studied different maps and different descriptions in the scriptures, and he consulted with the locals, and he also consulted with the municipality, the government. And he found out that there's one place called Bandokor. Now, in Mayapur, we have the Pukur, Prabhupada Pukur. So this Kor means Kund, a pond. So Bando Kor, according to the descriptions in the scriptures and according to the maps, he understood that Bando Kor meant the Kund of Vrinda. So when he came out here, there was a pond, and the whole pond was surrounded by what's called babul. Babul is, the stickers are this long, and you can't even get near them because when they prick you, poison goes into your body. So the whole place was surrounded by these babul. But he understood that this was Vrindakund. So he went to Kamyavan, and he had a deity of Vrinda Devi carved there. And he brought that deity here, and he built a little temple. And because he was quite old, he needed a pujari to worship the deity. Now, there are many different types of Brijbasis in Braj. Some of them claim to be original Brijbasis, although we know that all the Brijbasis went back to Godhead with Krishna. But the Brahmins were brought specially from different places in India to worship in the temples. And they come from different lines, Vashisht line, Agastya line, Gautam, Muni line, like that. So there was a Brahmin family here, the Gaur family. And one of the sons in that family had taken Gaudiya Vaishnav Diksha, and his name was Bhagwat Prasad. So Madhav Das Baba chose Bhagwat Prasad to come here every day from Nandagaon and worship Vrinda Devi. Meanwhile, according to the maps and the description, Madhav Das could understand that wherever Vrinda Devi is, wherever Vrinda Kund is, there has to be Gupt Kund. So he did something very radical. He asked all of the girl college students to come here and dig out Gupta Kund. Just like you know the story of how Radha Kund was dug out by the gopis. So he had the girls come from different nearby colleges come and dig out Gupta Kund. And naturally that made a big attraction for other people to come and help. So that's how Gupta Kund was re-established by Madhav Das Baba. Now Madhav Das Baba was growing old and he developed cancer. He hadn't finished his lifetime dream of re-establishing all the kunds. And he just had his one disciple here, Bhagwat Prasad. And he informed Bhagwat Prasad he's going to die soon. Who will look after this project? He went to all the big temples all over Vrindavan. And he asked them to take over this project. And everyone gave him the same answer. We hear it in ISKCON also. They all said, no men, no money. They all had their own projects. And since this was a very new project, it needed a lot of development. No one was ready to take up this important project. So then Bhagwat Prasad, being a young man, he'd seen the ISKCON devotees coming to Nandagaon. He lives on the hill here. He told Madhav Das, why don't you go to ISKCON and ask them? That was in 1988. And our temple president at that time was Dinabandhu. So when Madhavdas Baba came to our temple in Vrindavan, he explained the problem and he asked for help. Now, although it was impossible to approach the area because of the babul, Dinabandhu had seen it from a distance, and he immediately said yes, he would take the project. Very soon after that, there was, as usual, some tumult in the Vrindavan temple. Somebody got assassinated, and Dinabandhu was replaced. He then had this project to look after.
И тогда в его распоряжении остался именно этот проект для того, чтобы он о нем заботился.
And he asked a few disciples of Prabhupada to help him. So the first thing that was done was we uprooted all of the babul trees. We got a lot of criticism for that. The Babas would come and say that we made it look like the moon here, because there were no trees anymore, there were just big holes in the ground. And everyone was very angry with us. But we cultivated the dust, and we dug wells. The water here was saltier than the ocean water. It was impossible to grow anything with the water here. And if you put water on the ground, a whole white blanket of salt would appear. So we had to bring water. Just if you walk down the road here, you'll see a canal, and that's the Jamuna Canal. It's Jamuna water that's brought here for the farmers. So we brought the Jamuna water and filled up the kunds and started to plant things. Every single plant, every single blade of grass that you see here has been planted in the last 20 years. And now we have a fully organic vegetable and flower garden for Vrinda Devi's Seva. So this is a real self-sufficient place when there's water. We also have cows that live in Nandagan, and we grow the grass for the cows. We have beautiful flowers to offer to Vrinda Devi, and we have so many flowers that we can send these flowers to Krishna Balaram and the other temples. So gradually the project was developing. But then when we were in Poland, 1998, a huge catastrophe happened, because wherever the foreigners are, everyone automatically thinks that everything is made of gold, and there's huge amounts of money everywhere. So some local thieves, they decided to come to Vrinda Kund, and they decided to steal the deity of Vrinda Devi. She was painted, and they thought that underneath that paint there had to be gold or silver, because why would the foreigners just worship an ordinary deity? So one night they came here, and there was just a small temple. They broke the deity out of the temple and carried her away down the road. When they got down the road, they started to scratch the paint off of her. And they saw that this is just an ordinary deity from Kamyavan. So they realized they made a mistake, and they threw the deity of Vrinda Devi into one of the fields. And when they threw her, this hand that gives blessings, the fingers got broken off. Now, after the theft, when the villagers all came to work in their fields, they found the deity of Vrinda Devi. And they immediately brought her back here, because this original deity that Vajranabha Maharaj made had also been stolen so many years ago. Here in Braj, a lot of the deities get stolen and sold as antiques. Just like Maharaj, he's always finding very ancient deities that he saves. So a lot of times these ancient deities were stolen from temples. So some foolish person decided to one time steal the original deity. And the entire family of that man was afflicted with disease and death and poverty. And they brought the deity back to Nandagan. And the villagers brought that deity back here also. So it was a well-known thing amongst the locals. Don't take Vrinda Devi's deities. So this was in 1998 when the deity was broken. And when a deity is broken, they can't be worshipped anymore. So we decided at the same time that we got the new deity, we would build this beautiful temple. And we spent about 6 years constructing and collecting for the temple and the deity. Prabhuji Bajahari, he just asked about the original deity of Vajranab. Now, because the soldiers of Aurangzeb had broken off the hands, face, and feet of the deity, those deities were also no longer worshipable. So what the local people did is, you've seen the Hanuman temples covered in red? So they covered this entire original deity, made them into just a big block of red oxide. And no one knew who was inside of that big block of red. This was hundreds of years that this happened, because it was in the time of Aurangzeb. So when we came here, all we saw was the red mound. And as we were developing and cleaning and constructing, I began to wonder, who's inside of there? So we took permission from Bhagat Prasad, the Pujari, and every Sunday we would come with a piece of silver and break off the red oxide. Gradually, the deities start to manifest. And when you go over there, you'll see Krishna very beautifully carved, and you'll see Radharani next to him, and you'll see either Astasakis or demigods all around them. So now we're able to see that original deity, but we still can't worship them. So that's a little bit of the history of Vrinda Kund. And if we have time, we can go into the personality of Vrinda Devi. It's up to you. Sure. Time is run out? Okay. Okay, fine. Or next trip. You have to come back.
Please don't get up yet.
Just one small announcement. The Pujari's son is asking if they have more.
We'd like to thank Mother Daivisakti for such an eloquent, scholarly, and devotional presentation on this historical place and the divine personality of Vrinda Devi. She's a perfect example of a Prabhupada disciple, a lady. She's very shy and very chaste, and sometimes I ask her if she can do this or that, some service, and she's very hesitant. When I asked her to speak about Vrinda Devi, she jumped at the chance. And it's very nice, at this time in history to see, as Prabhupada's disciples get older, they excel in devotional service. This is the result of a lifetime of devotional service to a pure devotee, our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. We would expect this, understanding how great Srila Prabhupada is, that his disciples would also show excellence. It actually shows the process works, and therefore many of you are young devotees or aspiring devotees, newly initiated, even we're just speaking 10 or 20 years, but you can look to Prabhupada's disciples like Daivisakti and understand how nicely the process works if you surrender sincerely. It's no small thing what Dinabandhu, Prabhu, and Daivisakti and others have done here. It looks nice and easy that we're here, but it took a lot of hard work, sacrifice, blood, sweat, and tears. And one day when we all pass away, the loving burden of responsibility will fall upon you to maintain this and even develop it more, not in the sense of construction and things like that, but maintaining the simplicity and the devotion that is very obvious here. You can also make this project very dear to your heart, and just because we came here and we had the opportunity to hear from someone who gave their heart and soul here, you can give your heart and soul, and you can also help in the project. You can donate now, and you can donate in the future. I'm always saying, preaching in the West and coming to Vrindavan, these are the golden moments in our life, and you should remember and cherish them and keep them alive by your devotional service as the second generation. Recognizing a lifetime of devotional service, I sometimes call Sitala Thakurani. And hearing Daivisakti Mataji speak, I was thinking of the term Goswamini, like we had Hemlata Goswamini, the daughter of Srinivasacharya. She's not going to like this, but it's okay. Mahaprabhu sent the Goswamis to Vrindavan with 3 particular instruction to discover the lost places of Krishna's pastimes, to establish deities there, and to write books on the science of devotional service. So since that instruction, the Goswamis did that, but his immediate followers, or the next generation, Narottam, Srinivas, and Shyamananda, they carried on that same mission. And somehow, by some causeless mercy, as Prabhupada's disciples, direct disciples, and the next generation, Prabhupada's followers, we're also somehow getting the opportunity to do the same thing. Prabhupada actually established a foundation personally when he was here to renovate old temples, take care of the deities, maintain their seva in Mayapur area specifically, but also in Vrindavan. He would take money from the BBT to reestablish, even though it wasn't ISKCON property. These places are so important, Prabhupada wanted them to be there for many generations. So Daivisakti is very humble. She was not, actually explaining how much she was actually involved in the acquirement and the establishment and the continued maintenance of this place. She was very much involved. So I'm sure she's giving great pleasure to Srila Prabhupada, the Acharyas, and Lord Chaitanya, who gave these three instructions. Literally, she, with the help of the Baba, the inspiration of the Baba, Madhava Baba, she helps, maintain the discovery of this place, establish the deity. There's a few deity stories here, but she's been involved in those deities. And she likes to write. She's, written articles and so many things about Vrinda Kund, spreading the glories of Vrinda Kund far and wide. So discovering a holy place, establishing the deity, and writing the books. That's so I say Goswamini.
Так что вот на основании чего я называю ее Госвамини. Она открыла святые места вновь, она установила здесь божества и написала на эту тему литературные произведения.
She'll never say it, but you can say it.
Она никогда не признается в этом, но вы должны отдать ей за это дань уважения.
Daivisakti Goswamini ki. Vaishnavas never come up with these titles. They're bestowed upon them by the Vaishnava community. So I'm not saying this is something official, but neither is it in jest. And you can understand the advancement of a Vaishnava or Vaishnavi when they speak their realization. A lot of this was history, but if you hear the tape again, a lot of it was realization. Again, a great inspiration for all the female devotees in ISKCON, that you have senior mothers like this who can inspire you, and because we have different bodies. So here's a Mataji can inspire all you young girls and see how far you can advance in Krishna consciousness. When Daji Krishna, her daughter, asked me for initiation, I was thinking, how can I initiate the daughter of Daivisakti? I said, I'll do it with the understanding I'm just adding the finishing touches on a painting. So many thanks to her again for such an illuminating discourse. Rasika Sramani was sending me text messages. Srila Gurudev, it's blazing hot. It's so hot here, how are we going to survive? I said, look at the devotees. They're just in ecstasy. This is not hot in Vrindavan. Hot in Vrindavan means 50 or 52. Rasika's from Chennai, from Madras, South India, but she's been away in America so long, she's become an American girl.
Расика из Ченнаи, из Южной Индии родом.
So in Seattle, this is hot. I'm just kidding with her because she's doing fantastic service, isn't she? I just like to tease her sometimes.
Я ее подразниваю время от времени просто.
So you can take breakfast prasadam now.
Сейчас вы можете покушать, позавтракать.
And after breakfast, we'll come back and we'll hear about the personality.
О личности Вринды Деви.
And then we'll have kirtan.
Затем будет киртан.
And then we'll go back to Vrindavan proper.
Потом поедем обратно.
Vrindavan proper, yeah.
What was the other word?
Then we'll have lunch prasadam. Then we'll go back to the town of Vrindavan. We say in English Vrindavan proper.
Okay. Downtown.
Somehow we have breakfast and lunch 30 minutes apart. Because we believe in the power of prasadam. I'd like to say how much in ecstasy Murari Krishna was, because her sentences are very short and concise, and mine are long and drawn out. He loves to translate for her.
Yeah, I can adjust.
Yeah.
Непереводимая игра слов была.
And I'd just like to mention that tomorrow is a rest day because it's Diwali. There's many transcendental pastimes of Diwali, celebrating Ram's and Sita's return to Ayodhya, the city of light. In Kali Yuga, it means lighting bombs and firecrackers. I stay home. It mostly happens in the evening, but it can be dangerous. So usually I'm either in my home or I'm in the temple. I don't wander around because the bombs are dangerous. And they're bombs. They're like, bazookas or hand grenades, very close to an atom bomb. Be careful tomorrow. Really a good day for hearing and chanting if you can chant between the bombs. The next day is Glorious Govardhan Puja. We'll meet in front of Raman Temple at 7 o'clock. Walk down to Radha Gokulananda in that beautiful hall we were in yesterday. We'll have our Katha and our Kirtan. We'll also have a feast, not there, but somewhere nearby. And the next day is Surya Kund, but we'll talk about that later. So take your prasadam. 20 minutes later, we'll come back here and we'll have some more Katha.
Так что угощайтесь, и через минут 15 мы вернемся и продолжим катху.
Kirtan.
Киртан.
And lunch.
И потом обед.
Shri Vrinda Devi ki, Shri Vrinda Kunda ki, Shri Prabhupada ki, Jai Jai Shri Radhe. Sham. Spasibo Bolshoi Hare Krishna.